Okay, so here we go. So the German cases. The following minutes, I would like to answer the following questions. You can read them. What German cases are there? Yeah, you might already have heard of them and know them, just to make sure we are all on the same track. Why do they have so weird names, and do these names actually mean something? And how do I identify a case? Yeah, it's also important to be able to see which case is what. Yeah. Okay. And then question 4, when do I use which case, which is one of the most common questions in my experience. And of course, we will work through a couple of examples. So this is not so theoretical. It's also practical. I'm rather a practical teacher. So let's start with the cases. You're lucky, German has only 4 cases. There is other languages like Polish, which I've learned 15 years ago, that has 7 cases. And I think Finnish beats that easily, and most likely Romanian or something down there has a horrible amount of cases. And the first case is called nominative. And I looked into the origins of these. I'm a big fan of etymology, means the origin of words. And nominative comes from to nominate. And you know that word from to nominate a president or nominate someone for the Oscars. So the nominative is the nominator of the sentence, is the boss, let's say, who is doing the action that is performed in that case, in that sentence. And if you want to find out about the boss of the sentence, you have to ask who. Or sometimes it's a what. Yeah, for example, who barks the dog? In German, that's a who. Or what rings the mobile? And in German, those questions are wer, if it's a person, or was, if it's a non-person. The second case is accusative. Sorry, it's written with double K, only with C in English. And it comes from the word to accuse. And that's actually quite beautiful, because here at Smarter Germans, we give our clients glasses, our learners glasses and classes, accusative classes. I'm sorry, I'm confusing the words here. So to excuse, the thing that is accused is in the accusative. And now you have to understand, accuse is a bit wider, is to be understood a bit wider. So actually everything you buy, you sell, you kiss, you touch, you taste, you eat, almost everything that is the victim of what is happening is the accusative. And if the victim is a person, for example, I love you, you are the victim of my love, we have to ask, whom do you love? And in German, that is wen. But let's say I love my mobile. It's not a person, it's a non-person. So I ask again, was? Was liebst du? What do you love? Next is dative. Dativ auf Deutsch. Dative comes from dare, to give. Funny enough, it's not the thing or the person giving anything, because that would be the nominative. The nominative is the giver, the one that does the action I've said. So the dative is nevertheless related to giving, because it's the receiver of a thing. So if there is a thing that is given, or for example, there is something that is told to you, then that is the nominative. In English, you would ask, to whom have you given the mobile? And in German, careful, we only use one word, wem. I delete the English. And there's no was here. So we use that for both. Last case, which I will not go too deep into, because it's on its way out. In a couple of years, maybe 50, 100 years, the genitive might be dead. And for B1, if you're a beginner, you don't need the genitive. Should you come across it, it's easy to understand. So I don't usually bother talking much about it. But it comes from the word Genesis, which you might know from the Bible or from the lousy Terminator movie. Yeah. And it means, Genesis, something that is generated, that is coming into life. And how do you come into life? Through your relatives. Your closest relatives are your mother and your father. So it also has to do with relation. And for example, and one example in English, the door of my car is broken, and you would ask, okay, whose door is broken? And in German, that is wessen. There's also no was, so it's for both. That's an overview. These are the questions, and we will work with these questions later, and I will refer to them later on again. The next question was, how do I recognize the cases? Now, you might be familiar with this table here. I urge you not to learn this table by heart. A table is always a detour. It will make you go into your head, then look for something in that table in your head, and then go back through another line to your mouth and speak. By the time you've done that, the other one has fallen asleep or switches to English. Yeah. So don't learn tables. Tables are a wonderful tool to give an overview, which is what I do here. Now, the nominative is nothing else but 4 different articles. Or let's say, to be more precise, 4 different endings. And you can see I've highlighted these endings here. Yeah. Let me color them for you. So it's actually ER, S, E, and E. And if you want to know how that looks with others, for example, to ask which car is broken, or not which car, which dog is barking, you would ask welch er. And you see we use the same ending. Or das, you would use welches, or welche, or plural, welche. And this is the beauty. No matter what article, the endings are always the same. Yeah. Now, the nominative has a function. We said in the beginning, it's the nominator. And the nominator is so oppressive, it subjects the rest of the sentence under its reign. So if it subjects everything else, it's called the subject. The subject is always nominative. There's no exception. The accusative is simply another set of endings. And if you take a look, let me delete this. Take a look, you will find that they are actually pretty much the same. Yeah, it's the only difference you find is in the masculine. Yeah, it's en instead of er, but the rest das, die. And as the accusative is telling us who is accused, who is directly influenced by the verb, by the action, it is the direct object. Don't worry about that. Yeah, just notice it. You don't have to know these terms. I will show you later how to find the accusative without thinking in these grammar terms. Then we have the dative. You see it's a completely different set of endings. I will not go into this extra n here. And that's another lesson. The dative, we said, has to do with giving, and I mentioned that it is what you receive. And as it's not directly influenced by the verb, for example, if you give something to someone, the thing you give is directly influenced by the giving, but the one who receives it is indirectly influenced, and therefore it's the indirect object. I've picked a bit too big font here, so I cannot, let me do it like this, object, good enough. Yeah. But the last case, genitive, in English it's called possessive case, which I like because it makes it very visible. Things that belong to each other in a possessive way. For example, the door of my car. Yeah, so you know the door belongs to the car possesses the door, and that's why it's called possessive case. Let's not go deeper here, as you can replace the genitive very easily with the dative. But again, now that's the theory. I hope it wasn't too long or too complicated. If you haven't understood anything, please ask a question. I will certainly try to answer that later on. So give me Let me give you a few examples. The first example, I want to work with the sentence, the man brings his mother a tea. You can already try to put that into German in your head. This sentence has certain elements. It has the man, it has his mother, and it has a tea. So we have 3 elements for the 3 main cases. What I do when I read a foreign language text, I always figure out what's the verb, what's the action, what's happening, because I want to know what's happening. Germans are so keen on to know what's happening. And in this case, it is the brings. I have to color this. And I always color or tell my students to color the verbs first. So now I know someone is bringing something. There's bringing happening. And my first question that I have is, who brings? Yeah, and you of course could ask what, but you don't have to. So who is bringing? Who brings? In German, we don't have this is bringing. We just say who brings. And the answer to that is which case? Of course, the nominative. Yeah, or the function of the nominative here is the subject. Now let me translate you the sentence for you. Der Mann bringt, and see whether you've predicted it, seiner Mutter einen Tee. So the German question for who brings would be wer, and all I do is I take the German word, German verb, and put it here. Oops. Oh, it's getting bigger. So let me go a page down, sorry. Now, wer bringt? The what we can ignore for now. Who's bringing? And the answer is man, der Mann. Sorry, that gets a different color. Der Mann. Now take a look at the man. Der Mann uses the article der. If we go back to our little table here, we can check whether we are right, whether that is the subject. So I take a look whether I find the article der in this line, and I see it's here with the masculine, in the masculine column. So we are fine. Just to make a counter check, it couldn't be the accusative because I do not find a der in any of these articles. So it must be the nominative. Der Mann. Actually, let me color this. So. Next question would be, what does the man bring? Yeah, because if someone is bringing something, I want to know what he's bringing. And in German, that would be was. And please note the technique I use here. Was bringt, and all I do is to take over. Was bringt der Mann? I integrate the answer from before, from above, and just add it to was bringt. Sorry. And the answer to was bringt der Mann, you can answer it yourself first, of course. So we have 2 more options, his mother or a tea. So does he bring his mother? Is he carrying his mother? Is the mother the one directly influenced by bringing? I hope not. Yeah, so he's bringing a tea, in German, einen Tee. Now let's take a look at einen Tee. Einen ends in en. If I take a look, we've asked was bringt er, so that's accusative. Let's take a look, and there is the en in the accusative. That's completely accurate then. So we have identified the direct object, the accusative. Now, next question, because we still have 1 more element. Actually, let me color the sentence a bit more. So the mother is left. And to ask for the mother, we know in English you would ask, to whom does the man bring a tea? And remember, to whom in German, we are already here, we have the wem. Wem bringt. And we do the same as before. We just integrate everything from above, der Mann, and I just get the answer from the very last question, einen Tee. Very beautiful, very logical. And the answer to that is, of course, seine Mutter. It gets a different color in a second, bear with me. Now, seine Mutter. Let's check whether we are correct, whether that is indeed the dative. If it's the dative, we have to be able to find the ending ER in the article table above. So we say it's dative. Do we find ER? It's not here, but it's here. So Mutter must be feminine. And of course it is. So this is how you can ask simple questions and crack at least most of the meaning of a sentence. This was a simple sentence, though. I admit there is way more complex matters.